Fifth graders, hope you are having a great week, and we're going to get started this week on page 14. You'll notice that we skipped pages 12 and 13. They aren't lesson pages. They're pages that we could use if we were in a full group setting, if we want to play some songs for a concert. You can play them if you want. Some of them won't make any sense because they aren't going to sound like the melodies you're used to. So we don't really do anything with pages 12 and 13. We're going to go on to 14. And 14 talks about tied notes. And you'll notice in the yellowish, orangish box, gives you a definition of what a tie is. It shows you what it looks like. I think it looks like a smiley face. And it explains how they work. Basically, you take the notes that are tied together and you add their counts together. So they show you in the example a quarter note tied to a quarter note. Well, we know quarter notes are one count. 1 plus 1 equals 2. You can tie together any kind of note. Any kinds of notes can be tied together. So you'll look in 59, fit to be tied, and they have all quarter notes tied together. So 2 counts. Well, what other note is 2 counts? Half note, right. So if somebody was just listening to number 59, they would think you were playing half notes most of the time because those notes are all going to get 2 counts. If you look at 60, Alouetta, they tie half note to quarter note. Half note is 2, quarter note is 1, 2 plus 1 is 3. So you will hold that note for 3 counts. Now we haven't got to what a 3 count note is yet, if we were just to see one on its own, but guess what? There it is in the orange box, yellowish box below. A dotted half note gets 3 counts. Well, we know a half note gets 2 counts. And when you put a dot on a note, you'll see it tells you right there in the box, that adds half the value of the note. Well, what is half of a half note? Half of 2 is 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. So when they want you to play a note for 3 counts, they're going to be able to do it 2 different ways. They're going to be able to write it as a dotted half note, or they're going to be able to write it as a half note tied to a quarter. And you should notice something when you look at 61, Alouetta, the sequel. Do you notice anything? Those 2 are exactly the same sounding. They've written them differently with using tied notes. But when you play them, 60 and 61 are going to sound exactly the same. Your family won't know if you're playing number 60 or your number 61 because those are going to sound exactly the same. Now, let's talk a little bit more about dotted notes because you can dot, like you can tie any kind of notes together, you can dot any note. Let's say you had a dotted whole note. Well, a whole note is 4. A dot adds half the value. What's half of 4? 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. So you would be holding that dotted whole note for 6 counts. You can also dot quarter notes, and we're going to do that later on in the book. Dotted quarter notes. A quarter note gets 1. Half of 1 is a half, so we'll be holding those notes for 1 1/2. We'll talk more about dotted quarter notes when we get to them in the book. Right now we're just dealing with dotted half notes. So when you are playing, some of the dotted quarter note or the dotted half note is going to sound just like the half note tied to the quarter. And the two quarter notes tied together are going to sound just like half notes. So this is more about how things look differently, how composers can write things differently, but they'll probably sound the same. Okay, let's get going with our play-alongs. Okay, trumpets. Just a reminder, you've already warmed up on just your mouthpiece, made some buzzing sounds, tried our sirens. How are our sirens going? We should be getting better at them. Then we've already done our long tones, playing just some long notes, and then we'll get into page 14. Okay, we talked about how these are ties. We're adding their counts together. So when we play 59, it's going to sound like a lot of half notes. Okay, on the tied notes, we don't tongue the second note of it. That one just gets added into the first note. So if somebody was listening to the beginning of 59, fit to be tied, it would sound like all half notes, all two count notes. Okay, let's talk about valves here. Open, our higher open, 1, open, 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 1, open. We got to rest to get set for our higher 1 and 2, 1 and 2, open, open, 1, 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1. Reminder, when we're not using valves, we have a nice C and our fingertips just sit right on the buttons. Okay? When we're pressing 1 and 2, 3 sitting right there. When we're 1 and 3, 2 sitting right there. Everything always just stays right on the button. Reminder, as we're going for these upper shelves, these upper parts of open and 1 and 2, gotta need a firm smile, gotta have everything pulled back, do not push forward, and lots of air. I know a lot of you are practicing in your rooms probably. You think you're playing loud and you think you're pushing a lot of air. Go practice outside sometime. Now that the weather's nicer, go practice outside. That way you can really be pushing some air and playing out nice and full, and you're gonna find those upper shelf notes come out a lot better when you're really pushing your air. Okay, let's play 59, fit to be tied. I'm going to put my metronome on 76 this week. We don't have any eighth notes this week. You'll notice that. But we're used to playing some faster notes now, so we're going to just start doing some of these exercises a little bit quicker than we normally would. Okay, 59, fit to be tied. We start open. Okay, so we're nice and ready. That first note is the upper shelf, so we got to be ready. Lots of air, nice firm smile, lips together. Here we go. So, do you hear how it just sounds like half notes? Yeah, composers can write things ties, composers can write things with just notes. It's up to them. They can do whatever they want. Now, did you also notice in the rest, what did I do? I got set for my 1 and 2, didn't I? And got a big breath and pushed lots of air and was able to get that upper shelf. Okay, 60, alouetta. Now we're tying together different notes. Half note tied to quarter note. 2 plus 1, 3. So you're going to play that note for 3 counts. Now let's talk valves in this one. You're going to notice something. 1, open, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, open, 1, open, 1 and 2, 1, open, 1, open, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, open, 1, open, 1 and 2, 1. We only used 1, open, and 1 and 2 in this one, don't we? Now we use the lower and higher shelf of some of those, but that's all we have to worry about. 1, open, 1 and 2. Now remember, as we shift between notes that use 1 and, say we have a 1 and 2 and then we have a 1, remember we're just picking up 2. We don't pick everything up and put it back down. Hear how clunky and clacky that is? Yeah, we don't want that. So if we're going from 1 and 2 to 1, just leave 1 down. Okay, how about we play 60, Alouetta. Keeping my metronome at 76. We're starting on 1, so go ahead and have your first valve down. Yeah, so you got to make sure you have a good M. Our lips are in. We're pulled back. See how you can see my dimples? Because I'm pulling everything back. Don't push it forward. And I'm pushing a lot of air. That is going to be the key to the beginning of Alouetta. Because if we don't get that set and get enough air, when we get to those A's, they're going to come out as E's. Really push the air down. Blow. If you got a music stand in front of you, pretend like you're blowing the music stand down. If you got a wall in front of you, pretend like you want to blow that wall down. Lots and lots of air. Okay, 61, Alouetta, the sequel. Gonna sound exactly the same. The composer just wrote it different this time. Instead of using the half note tied to the quarter, which gets 3 counts, he's using the dotted half note in this one, which gets 3 counts. But to anyone who's listening to your practice, they're gonna think that you're playing the same thing again. It just looks differently. And we gotta get used to the way things can look different. Composers aren't always gonna use ties, or composers aren't always gonna use dotted notes. We have to be ready to be able to play all those kinds of notes. Okay, so here we go. 61, Alouetta, the sequel. Starting on first valve, have that ready. Gonna sound exactly the same, we hope. It just looks different. See, sounds exactly the same, just looks different. Well, there you go. Working on ties and dotted half notes this week. Have a great week. I look forward to seeing your videos, and good luck with your tied and dotted notes.